Oh no, not red. Don't you hurt Yukari. Don't you do it. Don't you dare. Don't you harm a hair on Yukari's head. I swear to God. Yukari's a precious little bean. Don't you harm her. Don't do it. Their ultimate destination had been an abandoned church in the mountains of Hachioji. I figured that's where they were going. Snow lingered here and there, faintly visible even in the dark of the night. It wouldn't have been odd for this place to be crawling with wild animals, yet there wasn't so much as a peep of a mouse to be heard. Cinnabar flames kindled in a rusty coal heater. This building's glory days had clearly long since passed, yet they still managed to find enough coal around by some stroke of luck. Yukari sat in a chair by the heater, warmed by a dusty blanket. Her breath came out as steam. Though they had 4 walls and a roof over their heads, it didn't change what a frigid night it was. A knife and skins of the apples they'd eaten sat next to her.
Yukiko.
Yukari turned toward one of the beds where her friend was curled up.
Nani?
Yukiko raised her head and looked at Yukari.
寒くありませんか? 大丈夫.
She quietly shook her head.
ストーブに当たった方がいいですよ.
She nodded, yet showed no signs of getting up. Yukari sighed and rose to her feet.
こちらの毛布は温まっていますから.
Yukiko made nothing but non-committal sounds. What are you even doing all the way out here? Late last night, Yukiko had brought her to this place. They'd gotten a fire going, found blankets, and went to sleep. Then, after waking up, they'd spent this day surveying the area and buying some food at the base of the mountain before coming back. Yukiko hadn't explained anything the entire time. It almost felt like she herself didn't even know why they were there. Personally, Yukari suspected Yukiko was trying to remember something. Whatever the reason, she decided to just play along. She couldn't just ignore Yukiko's suffering, after all. Plus, she knew this place was very important to her friend. Yukiko claimed that this is where it all began for her. But what did she mean by that? Interesting. Huh? Why can't I lift a finger? Why do I feel like I'm burning from head to toe? Why's my head killing me like someone whacked it with a hammer? I tried moving my left arm only to feel something in return. What is this?
目覚められましたか?
Koharu? Oh, shit.
Yamanouchi-sensei.
Did you get into a fucking car accident, Reiji? Koharu was standing right before me.
病院ですか?
Of course, he was... Yeah, it's winter. The streets are all snowy and he's pissed, he's driving reckless.
それも気づいていなかったのですか?
いや、何が何だか.
It was then that I saw a tube sticking out of my left arm.
点滴?
My suspicions were confirmed. My eyes followed the tube up to an inverted glass jar hanging at the other end.
明け方に病院の前で倒れられていたんですよ.
俺が?
I didn't remember any of that. All I could recall was tearing the city apart in search of Yukari and Yukiko last night.
そうだ.
Gotta get moving. It was that thought of mine that I tried sitting up only for Koharu to hold me down.
いけません.
いや、ですが.
点滴を受けている理由.
なんとなくは。ここ数日は
I've been felled merely by fatigue, plain and simple.
分かっていらっしゃるのでしたら、子供じゃないんですし、どうすればいいのか分かりますよね。
そうですね。
I eased up. No sooner had I done that, so that I felt myself sinking into the feathery pillows and mattress, engulfing me like the world's most soothing hot spring. But much as I appreciate Koharu's concern, I couldn't afford to return to the land of slumber.
お家の方は留守でしたので、事務所にいた正木さんに
どうも。
I was sure he was going to let me have it once he got here. He was the only one I could turn to, considering I was currently bedridden and all. I'd scoured the city from top to bottom last night, only to find neither hide nor hair of Yukari and Yukiko. Furthermore, I'd called acquaintances such as Fuyumi to ask if the girls were with them, albeit subtly so as not to cause any panic, only to learn they weren't. Where else could they have gone?
時坂さん、
Koharu took my hand into her own.
山之内先生。
今はお休みになってください。大変なことが起こっているのは察していますが。
すみません。
She helped me cool off a little. However, that didn't keep the gears in my mind from racing.
時坂さん。
おう。
I waved to him with as much gusto as I could muster.
一体何があったんですか?
山之内先生。 一旦席を外してもらってもよろしいですか？
それは構いませんが。
Not like I could even if I wanted to. Not in this shape, anyway. Brother saw herself out, leaving me and Masaki to ourselves.
で、何があったんですか？
ゆかりとゆきこさんが
どうして？
わからん。家に荒らされた様子もないし、どこへ行ったのかもまだ分かっていない。
それで一晩中探していたんですか？
思い当たるところは大抵見た。
典型会ですか？
ああ。あそこを探るにはどうしても警察の介入を招いてしまう。
それでいいじゃないですか。なんでいなくなったのか分かってすぐに
まったくだ。
Couldn't bring myself to argue with him. No, panic had been part of it. The other reason I didn't call was because my damn pride had gotten in the way.
冬美さんにも知らせます。
頼む。俺が謝っていたと。
Honestly, this isn't the best time to drop this news on him. The sooner he knows, the better.
ゆきこさんはお前の娘じゃないからな。
そんなことは分かってます。
Masaki left. How the fuck did you figure that out? Seriously, where in the world did the girls go? Much as I wanted to go around looking for potential witnesses that I hadn't been able to seek out last night, I was good as paralyzed for the moment. That's all I could do was hope Masaki was smart enough to figure out who they were and get the job done. All of a sudden, the door opened. Turned my head and spotted Michiru poking her head through the crack in the doorway.
Yeah.
Hey, bud. I waved to her as well.
怪我？
違うよ。ただ倒れただけさ。
そう。
You could at least pretend to be worried, you know? Michiru walked over and sat herself on the edge of the bed.
君も倒れたんだろ？
うん。
She gave a hint of a nod.
ゆきこちゃんと会っ
それで倒れたのかい？
Masaki had filled me in on her condition yesterday. However, I had no idea it had been triggered by an encounter with Yukiko.
見たくないものが見えそうだったから。
Michiru looked right at me.
見たのかい？
She shook her head.
見なかった。見えてしまったら。
Michiru closed her eye.
そうはしたくないよな。
見たいものまで見えなくなるのは嫌。
She shook her head.
ゆきこちゃんいなくなったって聞こえた。
うちのゆかりと一緒にね。おそらく自発的な失踪。家出のようなものだと思うが。
また殺すの？
Did I hear that right? That question hit far harder than usual, considering she'd always used euphemisms like can no longer see. But who's going to be killed? I don't know. Who else is with her, you Reiji? And who will do the killing?
そうはならないよ。
He reached out and tousled Michiru's
ゆか
hair.
りは殺させない。そしてゆきこさんも。
That was the only interpretation I found made sense to
ゆ
me.
きおさんを殺したのはゆきこさんなのだね。
Michiru feebly nodded.
もう見たくない。
そうだろうね。見ないようにするには止めに行かなくてはならないな。
うん。
Still, I needed to find out where they were first. I'm gonna need to call in a favor from Yaginuma, aren't I? Now, first things first. Started the tube sticking out of my left arm. Crowder's gonna give me hell if I don't wait for the IV to finish beforehand. Masaki left the hospital and rode the Chuo line over to the Kaihara residence in Musashi Sakai. Despite the big game he talked to Reiji, he was actually nervous about telling Fuyumi what happened. Still, she had to know. Yukiko was her daughter, after all. In all honesty, Masaki had been relieved to hear Reiji say Yukiko wasn't his daughter. Not because she disappeared, but for a far simpler reason. Having a daughter suddenly pop into his life would have overwhelmed him. Well, you do still have one, it's just not Yukiko. You have no idea how to interact with her. I'd say you've fared pretty well if who your daughter actually is who I think she is. After all, he'd barely been able to function around his sister and the rest of his family after over a decade's dearth of association with him. So dealing with a daughter he'd never met at all would have been more awkward. When all was said and done, the idea that he could be a father still didn't feel real to him. Instead, Satsuki, whom he'd at least spent a few months with, felt closer to his heart. However, he admittedly had no clue how many times he'd actually met that Satsuki. That was to say, Ayako. While they had indeed slept together, he still couldn't tell the difference between her and Satsuki. Besides, it was much too late to tell them apart in his memories after all this time. It was all simply too far behind in the past. Masaki rang the Kayahara doorbell. He subsequently heard shuffling from inside, followed by the door bursting open.
Yukiko!
Masaki instinctively caught Fuyumi when she lunged right for him.
ごめんなさい。
いえ、こちらこそすみません。
He let her go.
何
Fuyumi started to say something, but just as quickly stopped herself.
のご用件でしょう。
すみません。ユキコさんがゆかりさんと一緒にいなくなりました。
Those words didn't seem to register with Fuyumi for a moment. However, she quickly came to her senses and seized Masaki's collar.
どういうことですか？
申し訳ありません。
All Masaki could do was apologize.
お上がりください。
Fuyumi let Masaki go and opened the door for him.
お話は中で伺います。
失礼します。
一体何があったのですか？
まだわかりません。
Masaki shook his head.
一昨日の夜から行方がわからなくなっているようです。誘拐とも自発的な失踪ともつきません。
誘拐？それが起こらないよう預かってくださっていたのではありませんか？
その通りです。すみません。
Masaki hung his head in shame.
やはり典型会なのですか？
誘拐であれば典型会が関わっていることは間違いないと思います。
巫女ですか？しかし会の主だった方は亡くなられて。
まだ残された人間がいるかもしれません。
そんな。
ですが失踪の可能性も時坂さんは指摘していました。
どういうことですか？
時坂さんの話では部屋が荒らされた様子もなく2人の持ち物も持ち出されていたそうです。
でもそうだとしても一体どこへ？
何か心当たりはありませんか？
そう言われても。
Fuyumi brought her fringe to her chin in contemplation. Brought her fringe, her finger, Jesus.
最近あの子はずっと典型会にいましたから、どこかへ行くというのも。
失礼ですがユキコさんの部屋を見せていただけませんか？
それはわかりました。こちらです。
Fuyumi led Masaki to a room further in. Said room was very neat and orderly.
典型会へ行く前にあの子が片付けていました。
そうなると手がかりになるようなものは処分されている可能性もありますね。
そうですね。でも
すみません。
Masaki scanned the room and got down to business. Alright, peep the uniform. Noble Girls Academy uniform hung from
持
the
ってい
wall.
る制服は1着だけですか？
いえ、もう一着は着ていると思います。
Simply learning that already made the investigation worth it. Easier to find her if she was walking around in her uniform, after all. True. Okay, okay. Masaki opened a desk drawer. Inside was a notebook and a pencil sharpening knife. The notebook was full of mathematical formulas, meaning it was probably one that Yukiko used for school. Meanwhile, the knife was just an ordinary pocket knife.
これは
A yellow cloth was sticking out from under the notebook.
リボンかしら。
Baby grabbed it and looked it over.
ユキコさんが身につけていたも
つけているのを見たことはないけど、使っていたのは確かなよね。
Baby ran her fingers across a wrinkled part that had clearly been used to tie a knot.
見た覚えはあるのだけど。
いずれにせよ今は関係ないことです。
Better off checking elsewhere. What about the right drawer?
これは
Oh. Masaki retrieved a journal from a desk drawer.
ユキコが日記などを書いていた手帳だと思います。
中を見ましたか？
いいえ、その勇気が持てませんでした。
Yumi shook her head.
後で確認しましょう。
Still more to investigate that moment after all. Inside were pencils, paintbrushes, and a painting
ユ
knife.
キコが絵を描くようになったのは、
Yumi picked up a paintbrush.
授業で使っている道具はあまり質の良いものではないそうです。
質はあまり関係ありませんよ。
Masaki took the paintbrush from Fuyumi.
重要なのは手入れですよ。絵の具が残ったままで乾いてしまったら
There was some red paint smeared across the base of the brush.
このくらいであれば問題はないと思いますがね。
Masaki put the paintbrush back. On the other hand, the painting knife had been cleaned immaculately. Doesn't look like there are actually any clues here. Better check somewhere else. Like this again. A row of books spanned across the desk. Feels like it would take awfully long to examine all of these. Should I look through them or not? Yeah? It looks like it would take a while to look through these. Should I? Like, yes, you're investigating, Masaki. What the fuck? Masaki retrieved the leftmost book and skimmed through its contents.
冬美さんもお願いします。何か手がかりがある。
The two worked together to investigate the books. Fortunately, none of them yielded so much as a single clue. Bed? There's a large bed by the wall. Masaki rolled back the sheets but found nothing sketchy. The window? Curtains. The chair? The floor. I think we've seen everything then. Books, pencils, left drawer, right drawer. I am thankful the guide was here so I knew to actually click both left and right drawers. Click bed, click... I've even clicked things the guide told me I didn't have to click, but I wanted to click everything. I think I've clicked everything. And investigation.
このくらいにしておきましょう。
And this is where I need to bust one last save. So I can go back and watch bad endings. Well, actually, I think the point I really need to save for is a bit later on down the line, but... There we go. Masaki suspected he'd be searching in this room forever if he continued scaring every nook and cranny.
では、手帳の中を見てもよろしいですか。
手がかりとなりそうなものはこれしかありませんから。
Masaki flipped through the diary after Fuyumi gave him a little nod. I had a dream where I murdered another version of myself. In it, I pushed myself off an overpass onto some train tracks. The train zoomed by and tore my body to shreds, all while I watched it happen from above. I also noticed my pinky nail was long. That's a charm to make your wish come true. What did I wish for back then? Leave me gasp.
夢の記録。
However, Masaki remained cool.
まだ先がありますね。
Yeah, please go on. Been feeling a lot better since the doctor gave me that medicine. Naori. Thanks to that, I can actually sleep at night. However, strange things have been happening from time to time in exchange. I know most of them are dreams, but they're clearly my lost memories. Truth be told, I would rather they stayed forgotten. In them, I hurt many people I loved. I did so because I wanted to become one with them. Oh. I know hurting them does nothing to help. Still, there isn't anything I can do about it. I wanted to stand in their shoes. No, I needed to. They're far more blessed than me. And yet, they aren't a part of me. Okay, and yeah, she has some kind of a borderline obsession with Yukiko, right? That's why she gets dragged out to the... Okay. That's why I've decided to make them one with me and become my true self. Yeah, you absorb them, do you? Amy fell backward when she saw what her daughter had written.
冬美さん。
Masaki frantically caught her.
どうして
Amy sounded dazed.
どうしてあの子が。
冬美さん、しっかり。
Amy held her hand out to Masaki.
ユキコはゆかりさんと
ええ、おそらくは。
あの子に私と同じ鉄を踏ませてはならないわ。
Amy closed the diary.
あの子が自発的に行方をくらましたのならば、あの子はゆかりさんを取り込もうとしている。
え？
おかしなものよね。血はつながっていないはずなのに、どうしてそういうところだけは似ちゃうのかしら。
Why does that have to be the one thing we have in common? Amy seemed to be mocking herself.
あの子に私と同じ運命を歩ませてはならないわ。お願いリヒトさん。
さつき。
That name came straight to his lips. He knew that wasn't her actual name, but he never called her by any
一
other.
旦朽木病院へ行きましょう。時坂さんと共にこれからの方針を練りましょう。綾子さん。
So he has known.
ええ。
The fuck? How have both of them remained so calm about it, though? Whatever. Found the hospital's public phone and dialed up Yaginuma as soon as the IV finished.
連携会の残党は今おとなしくしていますよ。幹部の主だった連中は見張らせていますが、
国分寺の本部に動きは？
誰かが連れ込まれたということはありませんよ。その点に関して典型会は白だと思いますがね。
根拠はあるのか？
僕はですね、先輩、あなたが彼女をかくまっていると思っている。
バカを言うな。俺 俺がかばっていたらなおさらお前に説明することはないだろうが。
そう思わせるためにあえて連絡したとも考えられます。
とにかく捜索を頼む。
はいはい、わかりましたよ。ああ先輩、先日捕まえたチンピラですが、新たに病院から入院患者を拉致したことも自供しましたよ。
拉致？
対象を間違えたとかですぐに解放したと供述していますが、本来の対象が茅原由紀子だったそうです。
Ah. Not sure how you get those two mixed up.
彼女を拉致しようとした理由は託戦の巫女だろうな。
そうでしょうね。どうして対象を間違えたのかは不明。
Yeah.
境遇が似ていたとか理由があったんだろうさ。こちらでも調べられないことはないが、どうする？
That or they asked for the daughter of Ayako, and somehow the thugs found out the biological daughter, which would be even weirder.
先輩が調べるのは自由ですよ。妙な隠し立てはせずに。
分かってるよ。
I hung up. Michiru's abduction was a mistake. The girl in question was sitting on the bench right next to me.
どうしたの？
いや、なんでもないよ。
Michiru said she'd made a promise to someone, then explained why she'd refused to talk about the incident. If there was anyone at the Blessed Congregation who would be linked to the kidnapping, it would have to be someone like Oribe or Utsuki. Both were dead, so there'd be no questioning them, unfortunately.
時坂さん、
It was then that I saw Masaki and Fuyumi approaching me from the entrance.
もう動いてもいいんですか？
電話していただけだ。
勝手に出かけたら小春ちゃんにお仕置きされちゃうから。
God, I wish. What? She wasn't wrong, but by God, that sentence be so easily misinterpreted. I doubted that was by accident either. Hell yeah, I love you, Michiru.
冬美さん、ユキコさんを守れず。
Practically prostrate myself before Fuyumi.
いえ、あの子が自分で出て行った可能性もあると聞きました。だとしたら。
Fuyumi bowed as well.
それこそ。
いいえ、紛れもなく親の責任です。
She hung her head, shaking like a leaf all the while.
二人の行方を探すことを優先しましょう。
I set my hands on Fuyumi's shoulders, snapping her out of her stupor.
そうですね。
Fuyumi nodded.
二人とも待ってください。その前に確認したいことがあります。
Asuki suddenly cut in.
なんだ？
時坂さん、これに見覚えはありませんか？
Recognize what? Yellow ribbon. Oh, wait. Is that why Kyoko acted so strange when Yukiko came in? Oh. That's Kyoko's ribbon. That's totally Kyoko's ribbon. Yukiko shanked Kyoko? What the fuck did Kyoko do? It did indeed. Why does he...
なんでお前がそれを持っている？
ユキコさんの部屋で発見しました。
With that, Masaki presented me some sort of metallic spatula. That's what she stabbed her with? Oh. I remembered Yukari once holding something much like it.
油絵に使うやつだよな。
ペインティングナイフと言います。ナイフといっても刃があるわけではなく、
何が言いたい？
Deep down, I'd already figured out where this was going. Regardless, I asked him all the same.
ユキコさんが葉月さんを刺したと思われます。
証拠は？
The response was rather terse, to say the least.
この2つ以外にはありません。しかし彼女が書き残していた日記があります。
しかし、
Should we really be doing that?
葉月ちゃんに謝らせてください。
Fuyumi bowed again.
やはり私の責任でもありますから。
わかりました。
I decided to take them to Kyoko's room. Once there, I knocked on the door a few times.
あら、皆さんでどうしたの？
Kyoko looked at us and smiled.
京子、ちょっと聞きたいことがあるんだが。
ええ、いいけど。
She sat up straight in her bed upon realizing this wasn't a mere social visit.
あの日、喫茶店であなたを襲ったのは。
Kyoko gasped. Her shock was quite apparent thanks to Masaki being the one who'd sprung the question.
お願い葉月ちゃん。そうよ。でも時坂くん、
心配するなよ。
ありがとう。
Kyoko bowed her head. This whole thing was strange no matter how you looked at it. Seeing a victim defend their assailant wasn't exactly something I came across often in my profession after all.
ごめんなさい葉月ちゃん。
Fuyumi bowed once more.
どうすればいいかわからないけど、本当にごめんなさい。いいのよ。きっと誰のせいでもないから。
Kyoko smiled.
でもいいのよ。
Kyoko kindly took Fuyumi's hand to her own.
何かやむにやまれぬ理由があったのでしょうし。
I don't know
あ
about
な
that
たが
one,
信じてあげ
Kyoko.
ないと。
She must have had a good reason for shanking me. Like, I don't think there's a good reason for that. Especially not you of all people. Fuyumi broke down sobbing.
時坂くん、
Kyoko called out to me. She rustled Fuyumi's
な
hair.
んだ。
ゆきこちゃんを助けてあげて。あの子は少し不器用かもしれ
And
な
I
い。
believe that much. I do
とてもい
believe
い
that
子だか
much.
ら。
And I believe it was probably due to her, like, her brainwashing with the congregation. Because we know, like, even before they whisked her away, like, she had had some interactions with Naori. So I do believe that had a part to play in why she would have attacked Kyoko the way she did. But that doesn't necessarily make it a good reason. I don't think she's 100% guilty. Like, clearly she's the one who did it, but I think there's definitely other factors to consider in her circumstance. But that doesn't necessarily necessitate a good reason.
そんなことわかってるさ。
それは私にもわからないわ。
やはり日記のことでしょうか。
何が書かれていたんだ。
私と同じ悩みを抱えていたようです。
Amy wiped away her tears and
あ
answered.
なたと同じ。
I glanced at Masaki.
自分は聞きました。ユキコさんは過去のミコと同じような状況にあるそうです。
他者を取り込んで自分の一部とする、そういう考えを持っています。
京子を取り込もうとした。
Yeah, Kyoko's like, what the fuck does that mean?
そうすることでしか自分の感情を表すことができないのです。
わからないな。
She loves you so much that she wants to stab you, you know. None of it made any sense to me. Still, it's probably true considering I was hearing it straight from someone who'd once experienced the exact same thing.
あの子は多分葉月ちゃんに憧れていたのね。
As one should.
私にだから一つになりたかった。コーヒーを入れたりラスクを焼いて葉月ちゃんになり変わりたかったのよ。
Tears streamed down Fuyumi's cheeks.
私がサツキをミコとして憧れたように、そしてサツキが私と綾人さんとの仲だ
綾子。
としたら、一緒にいるゆかりちゃんが危ない。
ゆかりが。
If Yukiko was indeed the kind of person who stabbed others, then Yukiko likely wasn't safe around her.
多分ユキコはゆかりちゃんに憧れを抱いている。ゆかりちゃんの話はうちでもよくしてくれたから。
だとしたら一刻も早く見つけないと。
わかってる。だがどこへ行ったのかまだ見当もつかない。
Unfortunately, the very nature of that question meant it was pointless for us to even ponder it.
鳥居さんに聞いてみましょうか。彼女なら二人の友人ですし。
It sounds like as good a plan as any.
彼女の容体は。
そう悪くないと思いますが。
そうか。
Whatever the case, we had to be careful not to set her
京子
off.
話してくれて。
私こそずっと黙っていてごめんなさい。
Masaki, Fuyumi, and I left the room. Itaru was out sleeping on a bench in the hallway.
こんなところで眠っていると。
Fuyumi crouched down and gingerly jostled Michiru's shoulder.
おはよう。おはよう。ほら、起きなさい。
Michiru rubbed her eye and got up as she snuggled against
さ
Fuyumi.
すがに慣れていますね。
そうね。
Well, that one specifically. Fuyumi smiled awkwardly as she held Michiru.
鳥居さんの部屋まで連れて行くんですか。
いいじゃないですか。
No harm, no foul. Well, that's one of her, orphanage mates, so, I'd say there's potential for harm and foul. Fuyumi perched a hand on Michiru's shoulder. Michiru looked up.
ごめんなさい。不安で一緒にいてくれる？
I ruffled Michiru's
お
hair.
となしくしていてくれよ。
寝てるから大丈夫。
I didn't know how that was supposed to put me at ease, but I just shrugged and headed for Kahane's room with the rest of the group.
どうかしましたか？
Kahane looked understandably confused to have a swarm of
聞
visitors.
きたいことがあるんだが。
あまりよくありません。
Kahane jerked her head away.
出て行ってください。ゆきおちゃんを見てる？
Kahane gasped.
ゆきおちゃん、どこにいるの？
Kahane sat up and stared at
ゆ
Michiru.
きおちゃんはもう見えなくなっちゃったよ。小羽ちゃん。
Hanny. I hate that they fucking did that again.
嘘。そんなの嘘よ。だってゆきおちゃんはゆきこちゃんと一緒に。鳥居さん、申し訳ないけれど、そんなことない。ゆきおちゃんはゆきこちゃんと一緒にいるって。
The agitated Kahane ranted on and on with no end in sight.
みんな私にゆきおちゃんを会わせないようにしてる。どうして？
Seemed we need to find a way to get her to accept Yukio's death. Michiru knew the truth, but it was unlikely her word alone would win over Kahane. Do we have anything that will resonate deep within her? Wait, that's right. Did Masaki say he found... Okay, so I think this is the big point I'm supposed to save. Gonna be Yukiko's diary. The idea of absorbing others and assimilating them closely. I believe that's what we're looking for.
ユキコさんは最近日記を書き残していたようです。
I held up the diary Masaki had brought with him. Admittedly, I'd yet to read it, but if Yukiko was just like Fuyumi, like Ayako, and Yukiko had felt identically about Yukio and Kyoko.
さあ、まだ読んでいないからね。ただ想像するに、ユキオはユキコと一緒にいるというのは、
Flip through the
こ
diary.
の辺りか。大切な人をたくさん傷つけてしまった。
Said Kohane's reaction as I read the entry. She was hanging on to my every
ユ
word.
キコさんは昔、白百合の園にいた時、兄のユキオさんを殺しているんだよ。
そんなの知りません。
Kohane shook her head.
私だってその頃白百合の園にいたんです。小羽ちゃんは見なかったから。何？どういうこと？見えなくなったことを認めたくなくて、見えていたものを見ないようにして。
見えなくなっていたのはユキコさんだけじゃないんだな。
Yukio made herself believe that Yukio never existed. Meanwhile, Kohane made herself believe she could no longer see Michiru in order to keep seeing Yukio, didn't she? Michiru sat next to Kohane and set her stuffed rabbit atop her old friend's lap.
みちるのことは忘れてくれていいのよ。ゆきおちゃん、白百合の園で一緒で閉園になった時。違うわよ。ゆきおちゃんはそのずっと前に見えなくなっていたの。ねえ小羽ちゃん。それは確か。
Kohane froze.
それも見えないことにしてしまったのよ。ゆきこちゃんとゆきおちゃんのこと以外すべて見えなくして。何言ってるか。
Kohane feebly hung her head.
私はね、みちるの代わりにすべてのことを覚えているの。だからわからないって。君には私のような存在がいないから覚えているはずよ。私はそんなの認めない。
Kohane's voice was hoarse.
鳥居さん、覚えてる？うちにゆきおちゃんに会わせてって来た時のこと。あの時すぐゆきこでもいいって言ったわよね。ええ、気づいていたんじゃないかしら。ゆきおちゃんというのはもう。
Kohane fumbled over her
ご
words.
めんなさいね。あなたも辛かったのよね。私はそんな。
Fuyumi rubbed Kohane's back as she wept.
彼女も知見の被害者かもしれませんね。
Oh, definitely. Masaki whispered that theory into my ear. Inconsistent, unstable memory certainly resembled what Yukiko had apparently been dealing with. Not to mention one other thing, something I couldn't tell if she'd forgotten or was hiding. Still, that wasn't a question I needed an answer to right now. We had bigger problems at hand, after all.
鳥居さん、ユキコさんとゆかりが消息を絶っている。
Bonnie turned my way, eyes red with
二
tears.
人がどこへ行ったのか。
どうして？
それはわからない。だが、このままにしておくわけにはいかない。
前にゆかりっちが孤児院のことを聞いてきたことがあって、もしそれをゆきこちゃんも知っていたら。
白百合の園かい？確かにあそこには教会があったけれど。
Guess we should check it out then. You know, I hadn't searched the place, that was
あ
for
りが
sure.
とう、鳥居さん。
Umi tenderly embraced Kohane.
行きましょう、時坂さん。場所も自分が覚えています。
駐車場に車がある。先に行っていてくれ。
私もいいですか？
ええ。
Masaki and Fuyumi left the room. Michiru followed
一
them.
つだけいいかな、鳥。これからのことは答えてくれなくても構わない。俺も誰にも言うつもりもない。君のご両親はどうしているんだい？
Kohane gasped and stared at the
以
floor.
前君の家に行った時、近所の人は体調を崩したのではと言っていた。
Kohane didn't answer. Fair, considering I'd said that wouldn't be necessary.
忘れているんだったら
I rustled Kohane's hair.
お兄さん。
無理して思い出す必要はないさ。君はしっかり休んで、またゆかりとゆきこさんの前に
Eh,
元
let's
気な
not
姿で
let's
現れて
not,
くれればいい。
jump the gun with love, alright? Your friends know you, not they
そ
love
んな
you.
資格ありません。だ
Oh!
って私は両親を。
それ以上言ってはいけない。
If she did, I could no longer feign ignorance. That said, this still left the issue of her hospital bills. She's gonna have to figure something else, I guess.
次はゆかりとゆきこさんも連れてくるよ。
Damn. She killed her own parents, huh? That's... Fucking yikes. I left Kohane's room with those words. He just strolled up to me after I'd finished making a phone call.
おじさん。
お兄さんな。どうした？
一緒に行っていい？
何をしに行くのか分かっているのか？
うん。みんなを助けに。
その通りだよ。
関係なくない。
Ichiro shook her head.
ゆきこちゃんを助けないと。お母さんのために。
お母さん？
Ichiro nodded and unraveled the bandages around her neck. Oh.
私はみちるの覚えていないこともすべて覚えていると言ったわよね。
ああ。
I turned to Michiru's stuffed rabbit and nodded.
私の右目は覚えていたのよ。
Just then, Michiru finished removing her bandages, revealing what looked like dark birthmark in the shape of thick lines.
この傷はね、みちるが赤ちゃんの頃につけられたものらしいの。
Tears streamed out of her right eye.
君は
It all added up. She had given her daughter up to White Lily Garden after all.
確か以前君の血液型は B 型と聞いたが。
BO 型みたい。
She was AB. Meanwhile, he was O. That meant any child of theirs would have either AO or BO blood. Michiru wrapped the bandages around her neck once more, then looked at me.
連れて行ってくれる？
分かった。
I had no choice after hearing all that. I'd have to get Kohane's permission first,
しか
obviously.
し一つ消せないことがある。
何？
君のその記憶だ。
Pointed at the stuffed rabbit.
さすがに赤ん坊の頃の記憶を明確に覚えていることはないと思うんだが。
Right, because Roshiki looked after her as well. Michiru didn't answer. However, I could wager a guess, one that made me wish I'd given the bastard a few more good ones till he ended up with a shiner. Don't you fucking hurt Yukari? The chapel was silent as the grave. Gentle winter sunlight broke through the windows. Its rays illuminated the sparkling specks of dust roused into the air with each step taken. It was all exactly as Yukiko had described it. Not even the decay inflicted over the years had done anything to detract from its majesty. Yukari would have wasted no time committing the sight to canvas if she brought a pencil and paper. And she suspected Yukiko felt the same way.
私の人生は
Yukiko led Yukari by the hand over to the altar.
ここより前の思い出はなくて、ミコと呼ばれても何のことだか全くわからないの。でもそうなることは昔から決められていたみたい。
So you are an oracle. So you are an oracle. Interesting. Interesting. The question is, whose child are you then? Are you yet another one of Shizuru's illegitimate children? Or are you something more twisted like Ayako's situation where Saya decided to fuck Shizuru's dad as payback or some shit? Right? Because we know who his actual daughter is. We know that the original Satsuki was a virgin, so clearly didn't have any children. But they called you an oracle. Was that just to send anything? Or were you actually connected to Hitogata in some fashion?
その前にわからないの。高貴な血を受け継いだとか言われたけれど。
Funny because your mom actually has the noble blood going through her, but
親と呼べるのは母さんだけ。
born of noble blood. I mean, yeah, there's not a whole lot of other ways we could think about that. Unless, no, because then you'd be far too young for that to be the case. I was gonna say unless you were like some hidden child that Keiko Zaizen had, but that would have been like shortly after Ayako's birth, which means if that were the case, you would have been much older. You were someone who was born around the time Ayato came back from the war. No, even sooner than that, like before the war began, in 40. That was who you were. That's around the time you would have been born anyway. In 40. Uh-huh. If you're of noble blood, I can only assume, if they're using that phrasing anyway, oh, she's of noble blood, I can only assume that's inferring that she's connected to the Hinagamis in some fashion. Which, at this point, fucking half of Tokyo is apparently connected to the Hinagamis in some fashion. But, I don't know, are you Naori's child, maybe? Because technically he would have Hinagami blood within him. Because even though Yuzuru married into the Kuroyas, he was still a Hinagami child. He was still a son of the Hinagamis. He married into a different family, but still the son of the Hinagami son. He would have Hinagami blood in him. That's why no one made a fuss over, Aito and Karen. Like, they know they have Hinagami blood. So it could be the case. So if you were Naori's kid, technically you would still be a descendant of the Hinagamis. But also, it doesn't seem like Naori is the one to, like, give up children, right? Not entirely sure. Told me I was born of noble blood. Interesting. Yukiko shook her head.
母さんも育ててくれた恩はあるけれど
True.
そんなことありませんよ。生みの親よりも育ての親と言いますし。
Very true.
時坂さんの育ての親はお兄さん？そうなりますかね。私も両親のことはよく覚えていませんから。戦争？いいえ、飛行機事故だったそうです。
It had been about a decade ago by now. Her brother's fiancé had taken care of her for a while afterwards. She too had been wrenched away from the world in short order. That was when Reiji had quit the force and started working from home.
むしろ私の方が親代わりに世話をしていたような気がしますが。そうなんだ。
Yukiko laughed. She's much more cheerful than she used to be, in Yukari's eyes anyway.
私がいた頃、ここにはもっとたくさんの人が集められていたの。
Yukiko turned around and surveyed the pews that lined the chapel.
この長椅子がすべて埋まるくらい。毎日ありがたいお説教を聞かされていたわ。キリスト教ですか？わからないの。教師様の教えを守り、託戦の巫女様に従えば。
Yukari recognized that term. It was linked to the Ueno murders from 7 years ago.
千里教。一時期はそう呼ばれていたこともあったよね。でも、ここではずっと典型の会と名乗っていたわ。ユキコはその託戦の巫女になったの？
Yukiko shook her head.
託戦の巫女は外部から連れてこられた方だったのよ。私は内部で生み出された真なる巫女。そう言われたわ。
So are you one of Michio's illegitimate children then? Because I guess Shigasa blood would also be considered very important, especially if this were, during the times of the early days of the congregation, right? Like, oh, Michio's blood would be highly valued, and now that we have the Blessed Congregation, now once again they're trying to find Oracle, and like, oh, technically meet one of Michio's offspring. I guess it would come back to when was Michio actually killed? It was like, what, a couple years? It was like at the end of the war, wasn't it? Because that's the thing, Arashima came back at the end of the war to find Michio fucking his wife and then killed both of them. Right? So, yeah, that definitely could have happened. Because she's like 17, 18, so she would have been born around the time Ayato was like 13, so that would have been about 5 years before the end of the war. So definitely what happened before Arashima would have killed Michio. So maybe you are... And that's the thing. Right? Was it... Wait, no, was it her I was looking into? Oh no, I was comparing Satsuki and Tokiko. Not Yukiko and Tokiko. Which already, the fact that they have very similar names, aside from the one syllable. Tokiko, who was an actual descendant of the Shigasas, now we have Yukiko. That's something to consider. Potentially they were... I don't know, we'll see. Nothing Yukiko was saying made any sense to Yukari. She could at least tell that her friend had been someone very important to the organization.
毎日毎日同じようなことを続けて。皆さんが同じようなことをされていたのですか？教団に従順な信者を作りたかったのだと思う。でも、そんなことをしなくても。なぜですか？他に生きていく術を知らなかったから。ここには温かい食事も毛布もあったし、風邪をひいた時もすぐにお薬をくれたから。
That is such a weird angle to draw a hand. Like, it looks like it's correct. The thumb was looking like it was just another one of the fingers. I was like, wow. But even knowing, like, what the thumb's supposed to be, like... That's a very strange way of drawing a hand. Like, I could see the angle where that would make sense. I'm, like, trying to do it with my own hand right now. I'm like, I can see the angle where that makes sense. But also, That's a very interesting angle.
先生の言うことを聞いていれば少なくとも生きていけたのよ。どうしてそんな話を私にするのですか？
I
どうしてかしらね。
don't know. Damn, okay. Yukiko looked up at the
多
ceiling.
分思い出したからだと思うわ。それで私のことをよく知ってほしかったの。飴？ええ。修行が終わるとみんなが集められて同じ色の飴が1週間続いたりすると友達とこっそり取り替えたりして。なぜですか？わからない。決まっているからとしか言われなかったような気がするわ。小羽ですか？わからない。彼女がいたことは確かなのだろうけれど、小羽ちゃんじゃなくて、あの時一緒にいたのは。
Yukiko made a sound as if she'd pieced a puzzle together.
何か思い出したのですか？一緒にいたのは友達なんかじゃなかったのよ。
Yukiko smiled.
ユキオさん。
Yukiko voiced the name that sprung to mind.
ええ、そう。私の兄。本当の兄だったのかはわからないけれど、血筋がどうとか言われていたから、おそらく私たちの親は分かっていたのでしょうね。
So I'm guessing you were
だから
both
兄弟として一緒に
illegitimate
いたのでし
children
ょう。
of Michio, and they were harboring you in case. Oh,
どうしてそんなことを忘れてしまっていたのですか？さあ、それこそ思い出せないわ。何か事情があって。
Yukiko suddenly nodded to herself ad nauseum as if she'd figured something out.
私が今の母さんに引き取られるほんの少し前、ここでたくさんの子がいなくなったの。誰に聞いても説明はしてくれなくって、不思議に思っていたわ。いなくなった子の中にそうだったはず。
Yukiko shook her head.
どうしていなくなっていたの？私あの時までは一緒にいて、それで、そうよ。
Yukiko's grip tightened around Yukari's hand. Yukari grimaced in pain.
私この手で。ユキコ！
Yukari frantically picked Yukiko off the floor.
ありがとう、時坂さん。
Yukiko smiled. Her face was white as a sheet.
ごめんなさい、ユキコ。どうして時坂さんが謝る？私が無遠慮に話を聞いていたから。ううん、辛くなんかないわ。むしろ今までもやがかかっていたのが晴れて。
Yukiko laid a hand on Yukari's cheek.
ユキコ、いろいろと思い出せたわ。兄のこと、ミエのこと、京子さんのこと、教師様のこと。
Oh, right.
みんな私にないものを持っていた。
Because she moved away.
憧れて。
She moved away from her previous school because people were making rumors believing that she killed her friend. And in actuality, she did kill her friend. Where now, we had all forgotten that aspect of her story. Yeah, no. She did kill her friend. And then tried to kill Kyoko. The founder. Okay, so she is the one who killed Oribe. Interesting. Interesting.
それはもちろん時坂さんのことも。
Yukiko got up and leaned towards Yukari. Oh, wow. Can't say I expected that. Like, I suspected she had those kind of feelings. I didn't expect we were going to go in for that moment, though. And just like that, she planted a kiss right on her lips. It all happened so suddenly that Yukari hadn't had time to move out of the way.
私はあなたと一つになりたい。
The whisper just barely reached Yukari's ears. Please tell me that's in the 18 plus way, not the 18 plus G way.
ユキコ。
Yukari grabbed Yukiko's shoulders in an effort to push her away. However, she failed to knock her back.
私は不器用だから することでしか気持ちを伝えられないけれど。
I'm just a bit quirky. Stab! You could have frozen show Yukiko had taken out. It was the knife that used to peel apples yesterday.
お願い。私と一つになりましょう。